Grant Robertson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. About half an hour after the earthquake was first felt, Kevin Kean realised that his family in Kaikoura would be in some danger. He was working in Wanaka, or near Wanaka. He then got in his car and he drove as far as he possibly could, and he made it all the way to Mount Lyford before the road ran out on him. The person who came to his aid was named Hugh Northcote. Hugh's farm had been severely affected by the quake, but what he did was work with Kevin Kean to make sure that Kevin Kean could make it through to Kaikoura to see his family. When he was asked about that, Kevin Kean said, "That's what country people do. They look after each other." Well, the good news is, Mr Speaker, that right around New Zealand, country people and town folk alike have been looking after each other in the last couple of days. I want to pay a huge tribute to all of those, what the Americans call first responders, the emergency services in New Zealand, who get out of their beds when something like this happens and go out no matter what's happening in their own lives. And I know in Kaikoura, with a volunteer fire brigade, there were people whose homes had been severely affected who got up and went out and helped others and hadn't returned home until the evening. That is the kind of spirit of response and empathy for the community that we hold so dear in New Zealand. As I say, it wasn't just in the Kaikoura area that we were seeing acts like this. As has already been noted, Mr Speaker, here at Parliament you opened up the doors of this House so that anyone who needed to could come in here. And it was quite an amazing sight when I was in here early in the morning, having had a look around Wellington Central, to find dozens and dozens of people down in the foyer being looked after, being given to breakfast, having other members of the public come in to say, once you have to leave here, you're welcome to come to my house. That is the spirit of generosity that we've seen in city and in town, and I think many people around the world have been staggered by the way in which the New Zealand Parliament opened itself up, let alone the many other houses around New Zealand. I too want to pay tribute to the Member of Parliament for Kaikoura, Stuart Smith, who I think might be about to speak soon. I know he's done a huge amount of work, and my colleague Reno Tirakatani, who also, his electorate is also covered by this area where the epicentre of the quake was. As politicians, it's a difficult time when your own community is affected, and I pay tribute to both Stuart and Reno for that. We've seen an enormous amount of outpouring of generosity and support. I want to pay tribute to the student armies that have been recreated down in Christchurch, here in Wellington as well, and also a special one created in Marlborough for the occasion. It's great to see across generations people wanting to support those who are around them, wanting to come together. Clearly, Kaikoura is going to require a huge amount of support over the next period of time, and I want to join with other party leaders and politicians who have said this House together will support them. But I also specifically want to mention the other communities in the Marlborough and North Canterbury region who have been affected by this. I know in my own family, and New Zealand First did acknowledge that earlier today, I know in my own family, my aunt and uncle who farm near Ward, this is now the second time in 3 years that their communities have been severely affected. And in their case, you know, 2 houses on their property, they have to squat between the two as they reinforce them. Those communities have been hit hard, and they will too require our support over the coming period. And as the aftershocks continue, I know how difficult it is for them. Mr Speaker, the other way that we come together as a country in these situations is in the services that we provide. And public services and servants have really stood up. I want to particularly pay tribute to those in the civil defence and emergency management area right across New Zealand, but also to a couple of areas that perhaps we don't always know. I want to pay tribute to GeoNet and the service that they provide in advising New Zealanders of hazards. And I want to particularly pay tribute to Dr. Ken Gledhill, the Director of GeoNet, and echo his call for a 24/7 monitoring service in terms of tsunamis and disasters. We need that in New Zealand. It is a price that we need to pay to ensure we give New Zealanders the confidence to face these disasters. The other agency I want to specifically mention is Radio New Zealand. Mr Speaker, all media in New Zealand have performed a good job over the last few days in keeping New Zealanders informed. But Radio New Zealand, in its role as a public broadcaster, has been outstanding in providing service to New Zealand, including Susie Ferguson's amazing run into the studio early on Monday morning. They deserve far better support support. Their funding has been frozen for 8 years. Let's make this the occasion that the House decides we need quality public broadcasting and we'll fund it properly.
Mr. Speaker.